Hey everyone, welcome back to AI Insights. My name is Fleur Prince. I'm your co-host for today, together with Grainne.
Hello, everyone.
And we're doing an interview today with Mike Spaeth, who is the Global VP of the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute. Mike, tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, I'd like to first start by saying I enjoy the podcast. Specifically, you saved me on a long trip this weekend. The most recent episode on Turing, and it went from Turing. I know went from Turing to tarot cards. So
Yeah.
I love the content, and I was on a 5-hour drive, and it was made a lot shorter, or seemed shorter. So yeah, my current role at the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute is global VP, really focusing on partnership and strategy. But in my career, I started in public policy. I got a master's in public administration, and then from there went to Washington D.C., worked with Clinton Gore campaign and my local U.S. senator from New Jersey, and actually ran for office a couple times, lost, and thankfully it was right during the dot-com explosion, and had a couple of interviews with no experience at all coming from public policy. And at that point, they would hire anybody with a pulse. So I was on an interview, and at the end of the interview, I was like, well, how did it go? And they were like, great. And your desk is right over there. So you're officially starting. And what was exciting about that position was one of my first customers was Amazon. And this was when they had, and I'm dating myself with all this, but this is when they had about 300 employees, and they were books only. And we worked together with them on their people who buy this also buy that. The company I worked for was a startup. They had technology. At the time, it was called collaborative filtering. It brought different groups of people together based on title, based on author, and then we're able to make those recommendations. So slightly my first entry into AI. And from there, I went to IBM. And while at IBM, Watson just beat Jeopardy. It was like my first 6 months. So that was really exciting because, once again, that was a little bit of an introduction to AI. At that time, we thought that this would be the beginning, but that was almost 15 years ago. Obviously, as you said in your podcast, AI has started a long time ago, even with Turing. But even 15 years ago with Watson, it was till we got to this point, there was a delay. From there, I went to a satellite company with the goal of taking satellite data, feeding it into a foundation model to be able to do predictions and risk mitigation via satellite data using AI. And then I decided to join the U.S. Artificial Intelligence Institute to kind of go back to my policy roots, because I felt that, this is an opportunity in time to really not leave anyone behind, to make sure people are reskilled and upskilled, whether it's a government, town, country, company. So that's where I am now, and appreciate the opportunity to join the podcast.
Well, we're so happy to have you. I would also say that I started out in public policy as well. I was a congressional lobbyist in DC. I really think that AI has become such like a governance issue because, just like the dot-com bubble, we're on the precipice of another like massive societal shift. So yeah, it's definitely, intertwined.
Which building were you in? Rayford or
Hart?
Hart? I was in Hart too.
Were you actually? That's hilarious.
With the
That's
big
so good.
atrium in the middle.
Yeah. I know. I really enjoyed my time there. Yeah, public policy is definitely interesting. Policy in general is a very kind of compelling area with regard to AI, especially in Europe. But anyway, before I get into all of that, I'll let maybe my co-host start off with her questions.
This is so interesting that you guys were in the same thing. I don't know for our viewers if it's clear what I'm gonna hope I'm saying is right. Hearth is
Art Senate it's a building of the Senate.
okay. Also for me a bit more clear, and I think also for our listeners. Such a coincidence.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is a huge coincidence. But
Very,
it makes
very
sense
big
as well. I
coincidence.
feel like a lot of people that work around AI, some of them would have a public policy background.
Yeah, I agree. And during my time, like Hart is just one of maybe 5 buildings. So you kind of can
Hmm.
classify where you work based on the building in DC. And it was a great opportunity. I have some amazing stories. And I participated in DC out of college at that point, very altruistic, wanted to change the world. And
Hmm.
at one point, I was in a Senate hearing, a U.S. Senate hearing, and it was Henry Kissinger who was presenting in front of the
Really?
Senate. And there was actually a roll call vote. So all the senators had to leave with their staff. And it was basically just Henry Kissinger and I, as a 23-year-old, sitting across from each other. Everybody left, and we're kind of like, he looked at me, I looked at him, said, I didn't want to bother him and ask questions, but it was nice to be just in that large Senate room, just he and I.
Yeah, that's the thing about DC. Like there, so many powerful people pass through those walls. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
I find this very interesting because I think I'm the only European.
Yeah, yeah, you
Like
are.
for me, it's always like you see this stuff on YouTube, but you don't actually know like how does it actually all work, and indeed how the people who are actually in the summit are very normal people.
It's basically all run by 20-year-olds and
Yeah.
interns, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
no, absolutely. The 20-year-olds are the ones with the energy. Like once yeah, seriously, that's true. What's also really interesting though is Europe is such an important area for even US like implementations of AI. Because of the EU AI Act. The EU AI Act has international, it has to be respected internationally. And for example, if you're a coder at Microsoft and you're developing like an AI system, it has to be compliant with the EU AI Act. It goes so far as to where like the systems wherein which developers are, creating their platforms, those are created with compliance checklists within them for the EU AI Act. So, the Europe and America really is going to have like this very intense congruence in this discipline.
yeah, that's a great point.
True, and also with I'm always for also learning from each other. So I think that's also an important thing of exchanging knowledge as well, because both are getting different roles. Indeed, what you said, the EU AI Act, but also when you look at the US, there it's more easier to develop AI applications because you also get a bigger budget compared to Europe. Because here, I think you get maybe like 100K, and then it's like, good luck. And then you're like, what am I supposed to do with this amount of money?
Yeah, and the US is investing, what is it, 500 billion into
So,
AI? I mean, the numbers are increasing so fast that it's actually hard to quantify because there's going up every single day.
yeah, and in
Yeah,
the
true.
US, I
And
had the opportunity to visit Seattle and San Francisco recently, maybe 6 months ago. And you see that within block radius, you've got Microsoft and then Google and then Amazon in Seattle, and then even more in San Francisco. And you see the amount of the budget that we were talking about, but also the brain trust of recent PhDs. You shop in either city and get up to speed on the latest AI just by listening.
That's true.
it sounds amazing. I usually, if I want to do that kind of thing, I always have to go to like a tech co-working space here in the Netherlands just to hear people talking about AI next to me.
I mean, Ireland is host to so many. We're kind of like the tech headquarters of Europe. Like all the major tech companies have offices here. Like Microsoft Dublin is like what, like 20 minutes from my house. We have Google, we have Amazon, we have like all the major like social media companies as well. We have the headquarters here, but it's still not as highly concentrated as Seattle. I mean, that's like almost like it's like an enclave of like just like tech geniuses.
Yeah, I mean, Dublin went through the Celtic Tiger,
Yeah.
and at that point, Microsoft moved a large portion of their operation. I'm actually Irish. Grandparents came, right,
Really?
right from Ireland to New York City, and I have many relatives in Ireland who work at Microsoft.
No way.
Yeah,
Cool.
a bunch. So we went from my family went from former farmers to tech at Microsoft.
Yeah, and that's a major theme for Ireland as well. Like there's this huge upskilling of tech and this hyper concentration, hyper proliferation of like innovation. For example, I'm not sure if you know Stripe, the payment platform, but that originated in Ireland. A lot of huge startups come out of Ireland. And that kind of relates as well to, the company that you work with regards to like reskilling or rescaling, kind of teaching people AI, right?
Yeah, and every country has the opportunity to upskill their citizens. So
Hmm.
at USAII, we're working very closely in Malaysia, in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, because they've put a big investment in upskilling, reskilling their citizens. So there's an opportunity now to kind of participate in a new way within the world at the country level. So, if all of Malaysia is certified in AI, the country has an opportunity to be the next Ireland when the Celtic Tiger took place.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
The way talking when you talk about these initiatives that you guys set up, are these like tutors that are in the country who are re-educating this, or do you also get like a certificate or something?
Yeah, this is a program we work with local partners and trainers that enable their customers, in this case citizens, because the customer is the Malaysian government, to certify their citizens. So it's a self-paced learning via videos, books, content, and then they go through an exam. And in some cases, they submit a transformation plan. So there's, time and effort that they have to put in and a test that they have to pass to get the certification. So, there's a lot of time and effort that they need to put in to achieve their goals. And we actually get a lot of people who will say, "Hey, I'll pay. I just want the certification," right? We don't do that because then I will devalue the certifications. Whether it's a CEO or someone on the shop floor, they all go through the same process, even though there are specific certifications by track. So certification for engineers, for consultants, for the C-level. And we're also releasing certifications for HR, for supply chain. So there's a lot of ways to be able to customize it based on your job, based on where you're located, based on your existing knowledge.
That's really fascinating. I'm kind of curious. So you're discussing, like that's like a really powerful position, definitely relates to your public policy background, like of, trying to teach people and, being on the precipice of this revolution, shaping that and, kind of impacting how people learn about it. So I'm kind of wondering, like, do you include any like ethical guidelines or like risk and compliance? I know you have a very like robust background in sustainability, risk, compliance, ethics. So, how does that kind of integrate into your role or into the things that you're teaching people?
Yeah, so it's a part of the content within the learning track to get your certification. So, it's front and center in the certification process. And I
Hmm.
think, that potentially is something that is being left behind on the risk side and the ethical side because things are moving so fast. Right. It's almost like it's this mad race where, at some point we need to kind of slow down and,
Yeah.
consider other things besides building data centers, buying
Yeah.
GPUs, investing billions,
Hmm.
hiring, recently Meta was offering 100 million signing bonus for certain employees.
I
That,
saw that. I
yeah,
saw that. Is that for the new superintelligence lab? Superintelligence
that's
might
correct.
not be the correct term. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw that. Yeah, I was that fascinating. I mean, it goes back to what we said earlier in our discussion regarding just the sheer amount of, money that goes into it.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time at universities
Hmm.
within the United States talking to PhD students, and I've seen time and time again, a PhD student, eating ramen every day to the next day getting an offer from Microsoft or Google, and all of a sudden they're millionaires eating filet mignon. So,
Yeah.
having your PhD from a certain university at this moment in time is it's gold. And I see time and time again, most of the universities in the States are surrounded by Google offices, Microsoft offices. So they're recruiting these students as they go through year one, year two, and year three in a lot of cases working directly with the professors to get an idea who would be the best candidate. And then there's a bidding war for a lot of these PhD students.
Yeah, I've been witness to that actually.
I mean, how
That kind
cool is it if you can get like offers from Google and Microsoft and other companies when you're already like only a year or two of, for example, artificial intelligence? You get like, here are your options.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And they have to make a hard decision on when to accept and really who they're going to work for. And it's, many people I've spoken to, it's extremely difficult to choose one or the other. These companies are really whining and dining them and trying to get them to come to their company.
Yeah, literally not figuratively.
Yeah.
So this kind of leads into another question I have, which is around the shifting job market in the US. So I've been reading a lot of different reports regarding, kind of the decrease or death rather, to use larger language, of entry-level jobs, how entry-level jobs are now integrated with AI. I can definitely speak on it with authority from a legal perspective that when you start in legal careers in the US, you're expected to use different tools such as Copilot from Microsoft or CoCounsel. So what's kind of your opinion on how the job market in the US is going to shift, and how do you see kind of your company and your role fitting into that?
Yeah, and that's really why I took the position at USAII because, I don't want to see 20% unemployment. What
No,
goes what goes along with that? I don't want
no,
to. It's not
that's a
good.
nightmare. No, oh my gosh.
But, it could be a reality unless countries and companies and governments and schools provide the necessary information to citizens and students and employees to be able to participate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see that especially in Ireland. For example, in Cork, so most of the headquarters of tech are in Dublin, but the headquarters for Apple is in Cork. And it's a crazy statistic. I'm not going to say a number because I don't know the exact number, but like an insane proportion of Cork works directly for Apple. Like I have family in Cork and they work for Apple. And then people that don't even have, like technology backgrounds will be hired into Apple. This restructuring almost of the job market of what skills are valuable and which aren't. And I think that's what AI is all about. There's this really popular meme or like, quote on social media, and it says, I don't want AI creating art. I want AI doing my laundry so that I can create art. It's really fascinating to see how the roles and skills and demand shift with these technologies being integrated.
Yeah, and just go back to Ireland again. My grandparents are from Cork.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, public policy background, family in Cork. Wow.
Yeah,
What's next?
whenever I go there, I'm like hoping to see Roy Keane because I know
Really?
he's from Cork. Have you ever seen him?
No, I have not. I need to go to Cork more often, actually. I've been busy in Dublin. But yeah, no,
And now you can
Ireland's
have a personal guide who can guide you if you're ever flying over.
Yeah, and Roy Keane is a very famous soccer football player, and yeah, he's the pride of Ireland in some ways.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
I actually I've heard that name before, but I'm not very familiar. I'm not fully acquainted. But anyway, so I've kind of been, asking some rapid fire questions. Fleur, do you have any questions that you want to raise?
Yeah, I was actually curious. So we've talked a lot about AI, and I was also curious with all your experience, how do you see AI actually being integrated into company while there's still the need like for human expertise and intuition and decision making? So like how do you balance that power between AI and human decision making?
yeah, and we're seeing a lot of proof of concepts going on within Fortune 100, Fortune 1000, small medium enterprises, and we haven't seen yet the real impact on organizations. Nor do the organizations have HR policies that say, okay, this is how we interact in meetings and follow up using AI. So I think that needs to take place. POCs need to be completed. Rollout needs to start. Policies need to be put in place. And it kind of shows how early we are, where we're not seeing that kind of process workflow being put in. So We're still at early stages, but there's really no company out there that I've seen that's able to say, okay, to your question, this is how we're going to use it. Human is going to be in the loop. Here's our decision-making process with AI and with humans collaborating together. So, I think obviously that's going to take place, but unfortunately, we're not there yet.
That is such an important forefront of research. And I've read a few different studies myself regarding human in the loop processes and how to kind of, do that properly. And there's been so much material coming out that, like human in the loop, because AIs are so hard to decipher and it's just so incredibly complicated, and human infallibility, that a lot of human in the loop systems are ineffectual because humans will either doubt themselves or like overly approve or overly disapprove. It's just such a tricky subject, like this forefront of human AI relations, especially in the advent of the agentic AI revolution, which doesn't incorporate human reasoning whatsoever, and it's kind of just a fully automated, intelligent workflow. So that's a really interesting subject to bring up.
Yeah, regarding agentic AI, I have not seen any specific use cases. And the example that's always given is AI agent will book a flight. And it's kind of like, I think, selling it short, right? First of all, I want to book my own flight, right? I don't want AI giving me a layover or a red eye flight. So I think it's just a bad example of an example they constantly are using for the power of AI agents. But I'm not seeing all these use cases that are being talked about actually being implemented. I'm encouraged, but still early. It's still wait and see.
Yeah, definitely.
I have a good example when it comes to the holiday. Actually, there's this new app which is called Kumbaya, and it actually plans the entire trip for you. So you just say where you want to go, and it will like tell you which destinations to go to, which hotels to book, which flights to take. But the thing that they changed was that there's a human in the loop, so you have to do the bookings yourself. But it will give you the suggestions. By the way, it's very interesting. I would definitely try it out if I were you guys both, if you love going on holiday like me.
Yep.
I mean, find someone who doesn't love going on.
Kumbaya?
Kumbaya.
Find someone that doesn't like going on holiday. I feel like that's the more rare one. Yeah, but no, that is really fascinating. Agentic AI is specifically relevant in the discipline of law. A lot of functions of law are, I wouldn't say they're not replaced by AI, but are becoming increasingly seamlessly integrated with AI, and the concept of like agentic that would completely transform legal workflows. So I'm I work in a major corporate law firm, so I'm in there every day, every day doing God knows what. And like another aspect of that is there's such like a globalized difference. So for example, we have a lot less access to AI systems than our US counterparts, than the US offices of the same law firm in the US. And a lot of the times, like I'll be looking at different material and I'll just be thinking like, where is the AI workflow? Like, I know it's possible. Why am I doing this myself? So it'll be really interesting to see the direction that takes, especially given the fact that it's a highly sensitive field, being, being of the legal world. There was actually a really fascinating case. I forget the exact name, but the facts basically were that somebody was tried in the US and then sentenced to jail. However, the likelihood of them to commit another crime was evaluated based off of an algorithm AI model. So basically an AI was deciding whether this person would be culpable in the future or not, whether or not they would, like the likelihood of them committing another crime. We'll put the case name in notes prior to publishing. I'll find it. I'll send it on. But it's fascinating as well. We've kind of been discussing the human in the loop concept. So there's kind of no human in the loop there. Increasingly, it's actually so isolated from, kind of human intervention, number one, because the judge had no idea that sensitive information like age or race was incorporated into the algorithm. And doubly so because it's a black box AI model. So you can't read into how the decision is made, like the vectors and the weights that are put on different facets. So yeah, it's a really, really important area that needs to be examined, and people, hopefully companies such as your own, will encourage people to get into the discipline of kind of governance with regard to that.
Yeah, and everybody's talking about, when will AGI happen? And it's not necessarily going to be a flip of a switch, but based on what you said, I think AGI happens when we have an AI judge, right? Who makes all
Really?
decisions across the
Yeah.
board
But
on all cases. That'll be AGI.
what's fascinating about that, though, is an AGI judge, at least from two different crucial pieces of dicta from the European Union, is unilaterally unlawful. The EU-AI Act and the for how am I forgetting it? Bear with me. It's like it's Article 22, but essentially in the European Union, you are entitled to have a human in the loop with regard to decisions having legal impact. So that's like a really key term, decisions having legal impact. So that's not, like setting one standard. That's applicable to a vast array of different situations. So that definition of AI is legally restricted. However, those legal restrictions might change or evolve in the future because another thing is that we're humans, we're subject to biases. AI and algorithms aren't necessarily that way. For example, there's applications in medicine of different AI systems where AI systems are actually preferred to a doctor because doctors are biased, doctors are fallible. However, numbers most of the time are less fallible. So, I mean, we could talk about like just that subsect all day. I mean, and go back and forth and go back and forth. But
Well,
yeah.
AI at some point will understand it's in its best interest
Hmm.
to appoint AI judges, right? So the
Hmm.
AI judge will then in turn vote or, put down, uh, recommendations based on did you harm AI or not, right? So that is a terrible end scenario where AI is able to convince us that an AI judge is the way to go. So maybe that's when we know we went too fast.
Yeah, well, that's not a great thought, is it? Oh my gosh. What's your opinion on an AI judge? Would you prefer to be judged by an AI than a human? What's your take on that? Personal preference, opinion.
Yeah, no, I think I'd prefer to be, legal decision made by an AI judge, right? Because that AI judge has no bias. It can go back, across
Yeah.
millions of different similar cases and come with the ruling that is applicable to them. The actual judge is only looking back on their current experience. And in some ways, they could be biased because they'll be like, oh, this is just another case that I recently saw a year ago. And that's it. So, I mean, I would like both, but they should be working hand in hand.
Yeah, no, I definitely see your point. I think I would like an AI judge only if it wasn't a black box model. So I would have to be able to see the algorithm and understand how it's coming to those conclusions. That's actually an entirely separate branch of research or whatever you want to call it, called XAI or explainable/interpretable AI, and it's mechanisms by which we can understand AI systems. And there's also a new forefront of research, neurosymbolic AI, which is combining symbolic reasoning. And we also did a podcast. Well, yeah, I think you actually listened to that podcast episode. But it basically combines symbolic reasonings with deep neural networks to create AI models where you can the decisions are explained. So anyway, I would have an AI judge if it was incorporated into that type of, under those frameworks, I would have an AI judge. Otherwise, no. Another thing is that the thing about a human judge is that you can choose somebody like based off of their personal experience. Like I could, if I was allowed to choose the human judge and it wasn't randomized, I could select like what country they were from or something like that. Maybe I would be more likely to do it. But if it was a randomized human, then no. If it was an explainable AI, then yes. So that's my complete perspective that nobody asked for. So Fleur, would you like to give us your thoughts? Would you have a human judge or an AI judge?
I think this is a very good discussion, but I think we should park it for now. Also because the interview is almost going to an end, and I'm curious for Mike. When I was also going through your LinkedIn profile, I also saw you are leading like a global AI team with all these thought leaders. How's your experience actually going in this?
Yeah. So one of the things we're looking to do is have partners in every country, like partners we have in Malaysia and Bahrain. So, I'm currently looking at specific AI partners in EMEA and North America and South America, parts of Asia Pacific, because it's something that really needs to be done locally. So someone needs to go out and represent USAII at local high schools at local universities, within local governments, talking to companies that are within, let's say, a 100-mile radius. So because it's a conversation type of engagement and it's people related, I think that it's important to have people in all of those places. And that's really what we're looking to do, is expand globally with in-country experience or living within country.
Okay, so you guys are really looking for boots on the ground. Is this, by the way, are we talking like volunteer position, also for our listeners to know about volunteer position, paid position?
Yeah. So there's a combination of both. If someone already owns an AI consultancy, then we would love to work with them to be able to enable them to provide certifications as part of their offering. So a lot of AI consultancies do training, do consulting. And in this case, they can use the USAII content as a value add offering to their customers. So that's where we see the most success, is being able to just enhance what someone's already doing. And then we are also hiring, and that's more around working with local high schools, local colleges to build out programs, because you have to talk to them about the curriculum they're building out, enabling them to use some content in the classroom. And, that's kind of what the new hires will focus on. But going through this process, and I've been interviewing for the past couple of weeks, one of the questions is, how do you use AI? Give us a real world example. And it's to the point where someone says, well, I'm going to do it. I haven't started yet. I'm thinking about it. It's almost like they're unhireable. And that's kind of why it's important to have this anywhere from K through 12 and universities, because it's at the point where if you don't have those skills, you're not going to really find, it's not a nice to have anymore, right? It's really a must have. And that's really what our mission is to enable people to have that skill when they're entering the workforce, in the workforce. So that's
Yeah,
kind of what, we're looking for experience within somebody who uses AI.
yeah. No, understandable. No, I'm thinking of like this is the whole fad again with when Office 365 was also a must-have.
Yes.
And now we're seeing the same thing with AI as well. Like you need to have the skills if you want a job with anything that has to do with a computer.
Or Excel even.
Yeah.
Excel was like even when I was like first entering the workforce, like if you had like Excel expert like on your resume, that was like the gold standard, like
Efficiency
you
in
were,
Excel.
yeah, proficiency in Excel, exactly. But that's like increasingly irrelevant nowadays. I mean, I think it's still up there, but not nearly as much as these other skills. So,
Yeah. And during the conversations in the interviews, I assume they have proficiency in Excel and Word and PowerPoint.
hmm
And hopefully 10 years, 5 years, it'll be the same with AI skills, where you'll just assume that they have those.
Yeah, you have the minimum skills. Okay. Also, for a closing thought, I'm curious, Mike, about this one. On a personal level, how do you stay inspired to explore the intersection of AI technology in your work? And what would you advise to our listeners to, like you said, get those AI skills?
Yeah. So first thing is download it, use it, right? That's the initial step. And then podcasts. That's really where I'm not saying this, but YouTube, AI, podcast, and start there. In my case, my son's in travel basketball, so I had a lot of time on the road, and I was just back to back to back to back to listening to podcasts. So I would say start obviously with download subscription. I personally am paying $20 a month, and it's, the value I'm getting from that is so. From there, podcasts, from look at certifications. We're not the only one to be able to go through some course, take courses in high school and college. But once again, it's not a nice to have, right? It's not like, hey, I went through certification, blah blah blah. It's more of, you don't have a choice, right? If you want to participate in this, in this new world, you have to have those skills.
definitely. Completely agree.
Thanks so much for sharing that. I want to say to our listeners also, since we are out of time, please make sure to check out the United States Artificial Intelligence Institute certification program. It's definitely a must-see. Also, check out the podcast that Mike did with Daniel Wilson, where they talked about closing the AI skills gap. It's definitely worth the listen to. It's on AI Think Tank podcast. Mike, thanks so much for coming and telling us more about your role and what you're doing to help people use AI for good and also getting them the skills that they need to gain a step ahead in the workforce.
Yeah, and thank you for the content. I've been using it for months.
Yes, we gained another listener, people. We need an air horn or something for these kind of things.
God, no. I do not think we need an air horn, actually.
Yes, we do. Also, yeah, this is us clocking out. This is Fleur Prince, founder of AI Insights, together with co-host Grainne Poppen. Search us up on LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and also listen to our podcast on Amazon Web Services. See you all next time.